The world has seen its fair share of mighty empires, and not all of them get the attention they deserve. As Alexander the Great's empire was collapsing, another empire was on the rise in India. While the founder of this empire has never received the moniker of great, it can be argued that he was at least as charismatic and strategic as his Macedonian counterpart. But unlike Alexander's empire, the Maurya Empire was greater than its founder. The Maurya Empire was formed around 321 BCE by Chandragupta Maurya. While little is known about his life before founding an empire, there are many stories about how Chandragupta came to power. He was reportedly born in Patna, the modern-day Indian state of Bihar. Some reports claim that he was a chief's son and his family had been left destitute after his father's death. Chandragupta's maternal uncles left him with a cowherd, but was eventually sold to a hunter as a cattle herder. Legend has it that he was purchased by a politician named Chanakya, also known as Kautilya, and received a military education. Another version of the story has Chanakya meeting Chandragupta by chance and, recognizing his potential, takes him under his wing. Other sources claim Chandragupta was the illegitimate son of a prince or king of the Nanda dynasty. Whatever the truth, it is clear that young Chandragupta's auspicious absence from historical records signals a humble beginning. It is no coincidence the Maurya Empire rose after Alexander fell, and the leaders of these empires are linked in numerous ways. According to both Greek and Latin historians, Chandragupta met with Alexander. Plutarch mentions Andronicus, the Latin name for Chandragupta, in a passage from his text titled Life of Alexander. He wrote, "Andronicus himself, who was then a lad, saw Alexander himself." It is speculated that Chandragupta visited Alexander to try and enlist his help to overthrow a tyrant. According to some, the meeting did not go well, ending with Chandragupta seeing the Macedonian conqueror as just as tyrannical as the one he wanted to overthrow. Similarly, Alexander was less than impressed with this bold Indian youth and ordered him to be killed. Traditional texts state that following the meeting, Chandragupta was woken from his sleep by a lion gently licking him, which was taken as a sure sign that he would rise to royalty. However he rose to power, it is generally agreed that Chandragupta Maurya was a born leader. His charisma and courage caught the attention of Chanakya, a Brahmin scholar who bore a grudge against the Nanda Empire, which ruled the northern part of India. Chanakya raised the young Chandragupta for greatness and embedded in him the desire to overthrow the Nanda Empire. As Alexander the Great's power in the region began to wane, Chandragupta began consolidating land. In 323 BCE, opportunity struck when Alexander the Great died. Although Alexander's Bactrian wife, Roxana, was pregnant at the time of his death, there was no viable heir, and Alexander's vast empire fell to infighting among his generals. His death left a huge power vacuum in the region, and Chandragupta was charismatic enough to take his place. When the last of Alexander's representatives left India, Chandragupta expanded into the Punjab region, becoming ruler there in 322 BCE. But he did not stop there. Soon he had raised an army and allied with a king that some speculate to be King Porus, who clashed with Alexander in the Battle of Hydaspes. The combined forces then marched to Magadha, intending to conquer Nanda. While their initial attacks were quashed, they continued to fight, eventually reaching and laying siege to the Nandan capital of Pataliputra. In 321 BCE, the capital succumbed to the onslaught, and at the age of 20, Chandragupta Maurya established his own kingdom. The Maurya Empire was born. After winning with force, Chandragupta kept power with an effective administration and created a secret service that helped destroy the sources of Nanda's power. From there, he spread his influence, taking lands by force or through alliances. Chandragupta expanded the empire's borders to Persia, clashing with a burgeoning empire headed by one of Alexander's generals, Seleucus I Nicator. In 303 BCE, the conflict ended with a peace treaty, wherein 500 war elephants were gifted to Seleucus. In exchange, Seleucus ceded territories in Gedrosia, Gandhara, and Arcosia. A marriage alliance strengthened the treaty, with Chandragupta marrying one of Seleucus's daughters. Diplomatic relations were then formed between the Mauryas and the Greeks, and several Greek ambassadors, including the historian Megasthenes, spent time in the Indian court. Due to these emissaries, there are many foreign literary sources of the Maurya Empire, including indigenous texts. Literature that mentions the Maurya Empire includes Megasthenes' Indica, Visakadata's Mudra Rakshasa, CHANAKYA'S ARTHASASTRA, the PURANAS, and many Buddhist texts. By the time of his death in 297 BCE, Chandragupta had all but united India. The Maurya Empire spread from the Himalayas and the Kabul River Valley to the Vindhya Range. Rather than focusing on power, Chandragupta ruled for his people. He gave equal rights to both sexes and, by and large, was a well-liked and well-respected ruler. When famine struck his empire and he was unable to combat it, he fasted in solidarity with his people, ultimately succumbing to starvation. However, the exact circumstances of his death are unclear, so it is possible he died a different way. Some sources say he abdicated and became a Jain monk, fasting to death as part of his vows. But Chandragupta's achievements weren't purely his own, and he owed much of his political success to his mentor and advisor, Chanakya. Chanakya was a philosopher and political leader educated in medicine and astrology. He was also familiar with elements of Greek and Persian culture and learning. Chanakya had compiled all his knowledge of material success, economics, and property into one book. The book, rediscovered in 1905, was essentially Chandragupta's guide to political success. However, the book was not without its controversy, as Chanakya openly advised creating elaborate spy networks that operated at all levels of society. He also advocated secret political assassinations as a means to maintain control. Given this information, many people struggled to reconcile his wisdom with his ruthlessness. Some compare him to philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, while many maintain he was more akin to the Italian statesman Niccolò Machiavelli. Regardless of his moral standing, Chandragupta undoubtedly benefited from Chanakya's advice. All historians agree that the Maurya Empire's stability was largely due to his influence. The political system of the Maurya Empire became a prime example of an efficient and effective government. Chandragupta's son, Bindusara, inherited the stable and economically viable kingdom. He continued the expansion of the empire, earning himself the Greek moniker Amitrakates, which was Greek for the Sanskrit word Amitragata, destroyer of foes. Bindusara was able to maintain his father's empire, but mainly identified the peak of the empire as being during the rule of Bindusara's son, Ashoka, who earned the moniker the Great. After Bindusara's death, his sons engaged in a war of succession that lasted for several years. Ashoka emerged victorious and became the head of the Maurya Empire around 265 or 268 BCE. 8 years into his reign, he initiated a violent expansion of the empire that gained the Maurya its largest geographical domain. The successful military campaign was against the coastal kingdom of Kalinga. Ashoka's success cost between 100,000 and 300,000 lives, and the price of his victory would forever change Ashoka and the Maurya Empire. Ashoka later wrote that he was deeply pained by the killing, dying, and deportation that takes place when an unconquered country is conquered. He stood by this statement and renounced all forms of violence, becoming a patron of Buddhism. His endorsement of Buddhism allowed the religion to expand and flourish throughout India. Ashoka rejected military conquest, adopting a policy he called conquest by dharma, a religious and moral law consisting of generosity, nonviolence, and truthfulness. Ashoka didn't just make his intentions known, he literally set them in stone. In order to publicize his statements, he commissioned many engravings on rocks and pillars that provided information on his thoughts and actions during his reign. One of the most famous of Ashoka's pillars is at Sarnath, thought to be the site of Buddha's first sermon concerning the Four Noble Truths. The pillar is still in its original location, but the top section of the column, which has since become the national emblem of India, is on display in the Sarnath Museum. Ashoka endorsed a policy of religious tolerance, guaranteeing his people the freedom to live and worship in whatever way they saw fit. While he did encourage people to exert themselves to increase their inner worthiness, he maintained respect for others and refrained from being critical of other viewpoints. His principal edicts involved the virtues of honesty, compassion, and mercifulness. His policy of nonviolence extended to every living thing, and he founded hospitals not just for people, but for animals. Ashoka paid particular attention to infrastructure and the intrinsic functionality of public spaces. He commissioned the planting of trees and groves by the roadside, the digging of wells, and the construction of rest houses and watering sheds. Periodically, Ashoka traveled the country preaching Dharma and relieving the suffering of the rural people. He encouraged his administrative officers to do the same, taking special account of the needs of women and people in outlying regions. He ordered that any matters concerning public welfare should be reported to him directly, stating that reasoning with people was more successful than issuing commands. Ashoka famously said, "All men are my children. As for my own children, I desire that they may be provided with all the welfare and happiness of this world and of the next. So do I desire for all men as well." Ashoka ruled nearly 40 years, dying around 238 BCE. His death signaled the beginning of the end of the Maurya Empire. Political decline set in, and the empire started to shrink due to invasions and defections. This great empire, recorded in all its glory, sank into historical obscurity. Some historians suggest that the Maurya Empire was bifurcated, and tradition states that Ashoka's son Kunala ruled in Gandhara. Some evidence suggests that Ashoka's grandson Dasharatha reigned in Magadha. In 185 BCE, the last Maurya emperor, Brihadratha, was assassinated by his commander-in-chief. Pushyamitra Shunga was a devout Brahmin who disapproved of Brihadratha's rule, which he considered impious. Ashoka's descendants had, by all accounts, continued to favor the Buddhist religion. Their non-violent approach had led to many invasions by foreign forces. By Brihadratha's reign, the Vedic culture had begun to be displaced by Buddhism, which did not set well with Pushyamitra. When the Greeks invaded and Brihadratha refused to meet them in battle, Pushyamitra defied the king's orders and attacked the Greeks and Buddhists. He beheaded 300 Greeks and brought the Buddhists before Brihadratha, expecting praise for his decisive actions. Instead, Brihadratha declared that Pushyamitra would be banished from the court. After an intense argument, Pushyamitra killed Brihadratha and declared himself king. Supported by the army, Pushyamitra established the Shunga Empire and started to reconquer many kingdoms that had gained their independence from the Maurya Empire. The culture of nonviolence and peacefulness was the Maurya Empire's downfall and its greatest triumph. Surrounding kingdoms and invaders took advantage of the pacifist views, and soon the people began to view mercifulness as inaction. Today, we can only imagine what our world would be like if political powers followed Ashoka's example. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Maurya Empire, check out our book, The Maurya Empire, a captivating guide to the most expansive empire in ancient India. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.